Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, I and my friends will present about nationalhood in world politics MPU3312. The group member is the first member Muhammad Fakhruddin bin Cik Samsuki 22000071. Second members Muhammad Ahmed Shauki bin Muhammad Shukri 22000078. The third members one Muhammad Nabil bin Muhammad Zamri 22000066. Fourth members Nur Shafrina Atika binti Saiful Nizam 22000075. And lastly Amir Taufik bin Jamaluddin 220058. Civil war in Syria. Background of the civil war. The Syrian crisis started in 2011 with protests against the administration of President Assad. The fight between the Syrian and rebel groups against government swiftly grew into a massive one. More than 11,000 air attacks on Islamic State targets have taken place in Syria under the US-led coalition. Since 2016, Turkish forces have participated in a ground operation against the Islamic State. The negotiations on peace in Geneva on Syria failed to produce a political conclusion, as opposition organizations and officials from the Syrian regime seek to identify mutually acceptable conditions for settling the war, said Peter Bergen. He believes that the Syrian government has recovered control of the territory slowly by opposition troops. Bergen reports that the regime was repeatedly accused throughout the course of the conflict of employing chemical weapons, and in 2013, 2017 and 2018, it has been convicted by the international community. He states that an 18-person team from Syria has recently started another round of peace negotiations in Geneva in May 2017. USA, who is support. Washington had given weapons and military training to moderate rebel factions fighting against the government forces loyal to President Bashar Assad. But the US and the military in 2017 and later cut some 230 million in reconstruction aid. The US has provided air support and weapons to the Syrian Democratic Force, an alliance of the Kurdish and Arab forces fighting against Islamic State (IS) militant in northern Syria. Several hundred US special forces were deployed along with the SDF. Next, who it's fighting against? The US has been loading an international coalition of nearly 60 countries, including Germany, targeting IS and the other extremist group with extracts. Since late 2014, the US has largely avoided direct conflict pro-regime forces, but in 2017, US President Donald Trump ordered airstrikes on a Syrian airbase in response to a government chemical weapons attack against civilians. He surprised allies in December when he announced the unilateral withdrawal of US troops in Syria, saying, "We have defeated ISIS in Syria." His own advisors later walked back that statements, leaving US allies unclear what the country's exact policy will be.
Okay, for the next slide. What it wants. The US had remained steadfast in a commitment to trying to destroy IS in Syria and Iraq. However, its intention on other issues have become unclear. In 2017, Trump told reporters that the US has very little to do with Syria other than killing IS, but up to that point, it had been deeply involved in brokering a ceasefire between government and opposition forces. The Trump administration has also given conflicting signals as to whether the US will oppose a peace deal keeping Assad in power. The US also seeks to block Iran and the Lebanese Shiite militia Hezbollah from establishing a permanent presence in Syria that could threaten Israel. Which peace talk it supports? Washington has supported UN peace talk had in Geneva since 2012 between representatives from the Assad government and the Syrian opposition, but the talks have so far failed to reach a breakthrough. Both sides have disagreed about whether Assad departure should be a precondition for any final settlement. Russia, who it supports. Moscow has long backed the Assad regime. It also provided government troops with air support and weapons and given it diplomatic backing at the UN and in international peace talks. Russia also has troops on the ground.
Next, who is fighting against? Russia first intervened in Syria in September 2015 when it started a strike against terrorist targets. While Moscow has said it is targeting IS and other terrorist groups, US officials have repeatedly countered that claim by saying Russia strikes are primarily directed against non-IS rebel forces fighting the Assad government. The Kremlin, meanwhile, has accused the US of using its campaign against IS as a way to slow Russia and Syria government military advance. What it wants? Moscow wants to keep Assad its closest ally in the Middle East, in power and secure its military influence in the region. It has an important military base in the western province of Latakia and a naval base in the Syria port city of Tartus. Russia leaders support a peace deal with broad consensus among Syria moderate faction that will allow Assad to remain in power. It had also hinted it may support limited autonomy for opposition forces in certain regions within Syria, which peace thought it supports while supporting the Geneva negotiations. Moscow has also sponsored talks between the Syrian government and the opposition in Astana, Kazakhstan that began in January 2017. Iran and Turkey are also parties to the talks. The Astana process tries to create the deconfliction zone that can reduce violence and pave the way for political talks.
Okay, that's all from us. Thank you, sir. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.